It's quite intriguing because last week, this was a man that said, I will die for this club sort of until the end of the season, you know. He'd only signed this 1.5-year deal. We knew that. He wanted to get to know the club. They wanted to get to know him. Now he's come out and said what he said. Why now? Is this a kind of a shot in the arm, as Crossy said, that, you know, it might be trying to spur them on? He's done this before and it has kind of worked. Or is this just an absolute loss of control and actually quite disparaging to his employers?
Conte's won more on his own than Spurs have won, certainly in the Premier League
That cannot be
history.
argued, I understand that.
Well, it's important because the context of it is that he's in a position to say it. People wonder about what the response from the players will be. What can the response of the players be? What have they won? What have they won? Tell me what has the club won? What can their response to him? Tottenham have to decide what kind of club they want to be. You've mentioned the two, you articulated it really well in terms of what they wanted to be and then what they ended up being. And it's almost a mishmash, really. Because if you're going to bring in an elite manager now, give him players to work with now, give him the kind of expenditure that the other teams in the top six have so that he can really have a go. But if you're going to bring in a project manager and then bolt players on, as you were saying, rather than give him the players that can grow as a team with him, then that's going to take time. That's not going to be a here and now. And look, we're debating it now. Over the course of today, here on Sky Sports News, you'll have ex-players who will come on, winners, who will talk about Spurs in disparaging tones, who will talk about when they played and they looked at Spurs and they said, lads, it's Tottenham, and they'll have a laugh and whatever else.
But isn't that the thing, though?
The soft centre that Spurs have had, and I'm not saying that as a criticism, I'm saying that's the way that Spurs have been perceived over the years.
Yeah, Mourinho's talked about it, but
exactly.
equally, he's employed by them at the moment, and he's got a team.
All right, let me put it this way.
He's responsible
What did he
for.
say yesterday that was wrong?
But part of it was the tone. I mean, you mentioned the lads at Tottenham. It's basically, it's almost the lads at Tottenham speech coming from their own manager. And while there are truths in what he said, I suppose it's all of it together and the tone of it, which does kind of. I mean, there is an argument from Tottenham fans today that's basically disrespecting the entire club in the way the figurehead should be doing. And I think there's a difference between asking questions and maybe.
But Miguel, the problem is, they're fragile about it. But the fact is that there are things in what he said that the club needs to face up to.
I agree with that, Darren, but publicly, does he?
Maybe that's what it needs, because listen, we say it every week. We come on here, we say all the kind. He's saying nothing different to what lots of people are saying on the outside. And sometimes, when you have somebody like that who's won things, who knows how to win, who knows how to challenge a football club, you need sometimes to listen to what they're saying. People are going to say, "Oh, he's come. He was never the right fit. It was a hit job," and all of that. That's all. Misdirection and deflection. The fact is that you could get someone else in and you'll continue in the same vein. One trophy, 25 years? League Cup in 2008, League Cup in 1999. What else? Pushing for the top four.
He's got to protect his own.
To win.
But absolutely right, because if you look at his, he's got Serie A ×5 with Juventus, Coppa Italia, Champions League ×1. UEFA, Italy's won a runners-up in the World Cup. He's done it all. But he's also got to preserve his reputation. So was that a little bit about doing that yesterday?
Also, even if a lot of what Conte said was right, if part of this is to try and kind of, get a response from the players, well, the effect of that is immediately undermined by the reality that the players themselves know he's probably off in the summer. So, I mean, like, what does that do to the atmosphere of the dressing room? I mean, even the idea, like, it won't have the same consequences because the manager's likely to be off and possibly doesn't want to be there.
But I think all round, and you're right about that, the clarity is needed and has been for quite some time. It could be the fact, and he's not blameless in this because the style of play hasn't been particularly good. But why hasn't it been good? Because they don't have the defensive base to build on. So he's got to play 5 at the back. But they don't have the quality across the back line to be able to even with 5 across the back, keep clean sheets. So they win against Chelsea and West Ham with clean sheets, but then they lose 4-1 to Leicester. They lose to Wolves. They beat City, but they draw with Southampton. There's an inconsistency about them that has characterised their time by and large over the last 2.5 decades. But I just think, as far as he is concerned, And you know, there'll be lots of people who say, no, get him out, I want someone else. But who are you going to get? This whole talk about Tuchel is fantasy, because Tuchel, when he goes to
It'd be similar to Conte, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. And what has Conte said that's different from what Redknapp said when he asked for Saha and Gary Cahill? Sorry, when he asked for Tevez and Gary Cahill, and he got Saha and Ryan Nelson. You know, what has he said that was different from the last days of Pochettino? And Pochettino said, I'm not a magician. Conte, I'm not a magician. Pochettino, we need a rebuild.
He said a little bit more
Conte,
than I'm not a magician,
but they're both using the same language.
It's funny, like if you speak to people kind of close to Pochettino, and they still think one of the turning points in the club's modern history was in the summer of really the 2017-18 season. Whereas they didn't spend in that year of 2018 by Lucas Moura, Liverpool sold Coutinho and brought in Van Dijk and Alisson, and Liverpool went to the next level. And the belief is that could have been Tottenham, but they didn't actually kind of build them or have that overhaul them when they were ahead.
And this isn't about, I mean, I've said this before, and I know you had a couple of fans. I've been on fans, podcasts and stuff. This isn't about hammering Daniel Levy. This isn't about hammering the club, because the club are very open about this. They're very transparent with fans, and they talk about the restrictions that they have. I'm just saying that if you bring in a manager like Conte, he is clear about what he wants to do. Even when they achieved top 4 last season, he said, I'm not used to challenging for top 4. I want to win. I want to challenge higher up the table. But Spurs don't have the expenditure that would require, that would assist something like that, which is why I go back to what I'm saying. They've got to decide what kind of club they want to be, because if you want to keep Conte, it needs more expenditure, sustained expenditure over several windows. You can't have years when you don't spend anything. And if you look at the other teams in the top 6, they've all spent. Arsenal spent. Liverpool spent. City and United spent. You have to.